Primary battle to see who will represent the Democratic and Republican parties is heating up across the country, with former President Donald Trump still playing a key role in the Republican campaigns. Julia Manchester with The Hill is here with us on this holiday weekend. Thank you for joining us today. Let's talk about the Pennsylvania race, the Senate race there. It has been a nail-biter. Trump-backed Dr. Oz versus McCormick. Dr. Oz has already declared himself the presumptive nominee, but it's a little bit more complicated than that. It's headed to a recount. Tell us where we go from here.
Yeah, absolutely, Ruby. We know that less than 1,000 votes separate these two men, Dr. Oz and David McCormick, after the primary. Now, we knew this was absolutely going to be a close election, given the polling that we had seen. However, we didn't realize that we wouldn't know who the nominee is at this point in time. We've already seen the recount begin in some Pennsylvania counties. We know that Montour County started their recounting process on Friday, and we know that 6 other counties are starting to begin theirs earlier as well. But I think the main point that we have to understand here, a main point of contention that's really between much of the Republican world and David McCormick right now, is this idea of counting ballots that were not dated. So essentially, you have David McCormick, one of the Republican candidates, saying that he wants those ballots counted. However, we have the Republican National Committee, as well as the state party, Republican Party in Pennsylvania, saying those ballots should not be counted. So a bit of a brawl or disagreement between some of the Republican establishment and some of these candidates, but we'll have to see how this plays out. You know, we are headed towards November. We know that the Democratic base has already rallied behind John Fetterman, who is very popular. So, you know, Republicans don't have too much time at this point to really get their message ready and rally behind a candidate.
Okay, let's talk about Wyoming. Former President Trump is there right now. He is railing against one of his most vocal Republican critics, Liz Cheney. Her rejection of Trumpism and condemnation of his efforts to overturn the election, is that going to put her in peril? Or will this be one of these races we've been watching where Trump's influence isn't enough to determine the results? It's kind of been a mixed bag so far.
It has been a mixed bag so far, and we know that Donald Trump is in Wyoming a week after he had a major endorsement loss in Georgia when his endorsed candidate, David Perdue, lost by a pretty big margin in Georgia's gubernatorial primary. So in Wyoming, we have President Trump holding this rally as we speak for Harriet Hageman. She is a Republican primary challenge against Liz Cheney, and we've seen that actually a lot of the Republican establishment and Republican leadership in the House, including the woman who replaced Liz Cheney in her role as GOP conference chairwoman, Elise Stefanik, as well as Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy, are delivering video addresses at this rally. So in a way, we see Elise Stefanik going up against the new pro-Trump Republican establishment. Now, Rudy, I will say, Liz Cheney is very much a formidable candidate. She is very popular. We know she's very popular in Wyoming. She's an institution there. She's a fundraising powerhouse. But I think ultimately this primary will tell us what direction the Republican Party goes in Wyoming. Do they go in Liz Cheney's direction and choose someone who's really been there in the state for quite some time representing them, and someone who has really worked her way up through the ranks of Congress? Or do they go in President Trump's direction, given that President Trump and Harriet Hageman have repeatedly exposed, talked about these untruths about the presidential election in 2020, saying it was stolen from President Trump, something that Liz Cheney has very much hit back against. So I think Wyoming is a major test and really could, tell us the direction of the Republican Party in some of these conservative states with major Republican figures leading them.
And Liz Cheney has been vocal about being willing to go if that's what it takes for her to vote for the impeachment, et cetera. All right, Julie Manchester, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching. Click the red subscribe button below so you can get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.